He said he was my cousin, but what he did, that's not family. What do you do when someone you trusted hurts the one person you were supposed to protect? In just a few minutes, you'll find out what really happened inside our house. The parts no one wanted to see. There were no bruises, no police reports, just glances, locked doors, and silence. This is my story, and it's not what you think. I'm glad you pressed play. Have you ever looked back and realized you stayed quiet when you should have screamed? Leave a comment below, even just one word. Where are you watching from? Or what time is it right now? And if quiet, powerful stories speak to you, don't forget to subscribe for more. Grandma, do you know someone named Danny? I dropped the spoon. It hit the kitchen floor with a sound louder than it should have made. Jacob didn't notice. He just kept scrolling on his phone, swinging his legs under the chair like any 15-year-old would, completely unaware that he had just cracked open something I'd kept buried for 50 years. I didn't answer. Couldn't. My breath caught in my throat like a small, sharp object. Stupid, really, for a name. Just a name. But that name. That name. The silence stretched. Jacob looked up. He said he might be your brother or cousin or something? I don't know. I was reading this old war blog, Vietnam stuff. There was a guy named Daniel Cordell, same last name as yours, and he said he was from Ohio. My hands were wet. I wasn't washing dishes. I didn't remember turning on the tap, but they were wet. Danny, I whispered, and then louder. No, I don't think I know anyone by that name. Lie. The first in years. And I hated how easily it came back to me, how the body remembers what the soul tries to forget. Later that night, when Jacob had gone home and the TV buzzed soft nothing at me, I sat in my recliner and tried not to cry. I didn't cry back then either. Not when the screaming started. Not when they took him away. Not when Mama said, "Don't speak of this again." So I didn't. But Jacob's voice stirred it. Just the way he said it. Danny. Like the syllables still belonged in this house. Like the walls hadn't tried to scrub them out. I closed my eyes and saw a red bicycle. Crooked handlebars, scuffed knees, a boy with dark lashes and a voice too quiet for his own good. Danny, my baby brother. I should have protected you. No. I stood up, dizzy, old bones creaking, and walked to the hallway closet. Pulled out a shoebox I hadn't touched in years. You know the kind. Full of old photos, yellowed corners, a birthday card from someone who's long gone, a lock of hair, a library card, the things you keep because no one else will. And there, tucked between a picture of my kids at Niagara Falls and a receipt from 1982, was the only photo I had left of him. Danny, 8 years old, barefoot on the porch, holding a model airplane. Eyes squinting into the sun like he couldn't quite believe he belonged to this world. And standing behind him, half in shadow, was Tommy, our cousin, the golden boy, the one everyone loved, the one Mama said would make something of himself, the one I should have stopped. I held the photo so tight it bent. My fingers were trembling, not from age, not tonight. Tonight it was something else entirely. The past doesn't knock when it returns. It slams the door open and dares you to shut it again. But this time, I wouldn't. I walked to the kitchen, sat down at the table, and opened my laptop. Chrome blinked awake. The cursor pulsed in the Google search bar like a heartbeat. Daniel Cordell, Ohio, missing 1973. Nothing. Danny Cordell, Vietnam, PTSD. Nothing. But I wouldn't stop. Not this time. He was my brother. My silence was part of the crime. And if he was still out there, then I was going to find him. When I was 10, I got roller skates. Danny got a red bicycle. It was second-hand with one missing handle grip and a bell that rang off-key. But he loved it like it was brand new. Like it came straight from heaven, just for him. He'd ride it in long, lazy circles around the driveway. Not fast, not loud, just content. Back then, his world was small, gentle, safe, before Tommy, before the door, before everything cracked. That photo, the one I found last night, was from his birthday. He'd just turned 8. I remember Mama baking 2 cakes, one for the family, one for the church potluck. She always did that as if dividing love made it multiply. In the picture, Danny's smile is careful, not fake, just cautious, like someone already learning to hold joy loosely just in case it slips away. Behind him, Tommy stood, half smiling, hand on Danny's shoulder, too firm. I see it now. This morning, I opened the second box from the closet. I didn't even remember putting it there. Inside, postcards, newspaper clippings, one glove, just one, and a folded scrap of notebook paper, the kind of paper you'd pass in class, torn at the edge, old ink, blue. At first I thought it was blank. Then I saw faint handwriting on the back. Did you see what he did to me? Or were you looking away? No name, no date. But I knew the handwriting. Danny's. I sat at the kitchen table, the paper in my hands, and my stomach turned. Because I didn't know the answer. Not really. I saw things. Not everything. Not clearly. Not up close. But enough. The time Danny wouldn't let me touch his back after swimming. The way he'd flinch if Tommy walked into the room. How he stopped sleeping through the night. And once, I saw blood on his bedsheet. Mama said nosebleed. I nodded. I never asked. That was the summer the basement door started locking from the outside. That was the summer Tommy moved in. Just for a while. That was the summer I learned how to pretend not to notice things. Children notice everything, but they don't always understand. Or maybe they do, and that's the problem. It's strange how memory works. Some parts stay vivid, like film reels stuck on repeat. Others blur out, like smudges on glass. I can't remember what I wore to prom, but I remember the exact sound of Danny crying through the air vent. Not loud, never loud, like he was scared of being heard. I tried calling the number I found last night, an outreach office for adult protective services in Cuyahoga County. They had no record of a Daniel Cordell, no David Nolan either. But the woman on the phone was kind. She said she'd check some paper files. Sometimes, she said, people disappear by choice, sometimes for safety. I thanked her, hung up, and sat in the quiet. Jacob texted, "Did you find out who that guy was?" I typed, erased, typed again, then just wrote, "Still checking." He didn't press. Bless him. That night, I dreamed about the bicycle, but this time, Danny wasn't riding it. It lay in the yard, bent, back wheel spinning even though no one touched it. And Tommy stood on the porch, arms crossed, face smiling. Behind him, the basement door was open, wide, dark. I woke up with one sentence burning behind my eyes. If I don't tell his story, no one will. So I put on my shoes, grabbed my purse, and drove to the county library. It's time I started looking in places that didn't want to be found. The librarian was younger than I expected, maybe 30, maybe less. She had short hair and nervous eyes. I handed her the name, Daniel Cordell. She typed it slowly, like she didn't want to find anything. When nothing came up, I offered the other, David Nolan. Pause. Click. Still nothing. But her fingers lingered on the keyboard. "You're not the first one to ask about him," she said. My breath snagged. "Who else asked?" She shook her head. "It was a long time ago. Man in a uniform. Military, maybe. I was still in college." "Did he say why?" "No. He just looked tired. And angry." That fit. Tommy was military. Served 3 years. Came back with medals. Came back heavier. Sharper. Came back worse. They called him the Gold Boy. Our town loved him. The way he smiled, the way he spoke. He could have sold fire to the sun and people would say thank you. Mama adored him. Said, "Tommy has leadership." Said, "He protects the family." Danny shrank whenever he entered the room. I told myself it was jealousy. Brothers do that, right? But I should have known. I did know. In my gut. In my bones. In the way I used to grip Danny's hand just a little too tight when Tommy was around. One summer night, I heard the door creak. Not our front door, the one to the basement. I crept into the hallway. The lights were off. Tommy's shadow moved past the kitchen. I held my breath. And then I heard the click. Lock. I could have opened that door. I could have gone downstairs. I could have said something, but I just froze. Like a deer. Like a child. Like someone who wanted to stay safe more than she wanted to be good. Back at home, I dug through an old metal file box. Taxes, warranty papers, forgotten things. And tucked between yellowed documents, I found it. A church bulletin from 1975. Inside, a photo. Danny in the third row, eyes wide and blank, and on the next page, special thanks to Corporal Thomas Cordell for his service. Smiling, proud, standing tall. The same week Danny was taken out of school for mental observation. Same week he stopped speaking. I stared at that page until my eyes burned. Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I screamed. No one heard, of course. My house is quiet now, but it was a real scream, from the lungs, from the years, not just for Danny, for me, for all the times I watched and turned away. I sat on the floor and cried like I was 16 again. When the air cleared, I whispered, "I'm sorry." And I swear I felt a breeze, a cold one, through a closed window. Tomorrow I'll visit the county records office. Tommy's military files might be sealed, but there has to be something. A form, a note, a witness, anything. Because he wasn't just a decorated veteran, he was a storm in our house, a door slammer, a quiet threat. And Danny was the one who took the lightning. The folder was thin. Dusty, yes, but more than that, reluctant, like it didn't want to be opened. The records clerk gave it to me with a look I couldn't read. Pity? Warning? "There's not much," she said. "There never is," I replied. Inside, a medical transfer sheet, a court guardianship, Form 1 intake note from a psychiatric facility in Cleveland, dated 1975, and Mama's signature that hit harder than I expected. I had forgotten how round her handwriting was, so confident, so final. She signed him over, voluntarily, for behavioral issues beyond parental control. Just like that, as if he were a couch that wouldn't fit through the door, as if he weren't her son, as if he weren't mine. I remember that day now. Summer. She told me Danny was going away to rest, said he needed calm and structure, said it was better this way. I nodded, believed her, because children believe their mothers even when they shouldn't. But now I see the lie, clear as sunlight. She sent him away because he made the wrong people uncomfortable, because his pain was messy, loud in all the wrong ways, because Tommy made it seem like Danny was unstable. I see it. I see it all. And still, I didn't go after him. There's a line in the intake report. Subject exhibits signs of trauma, withdrawn, avoids eye contact, states, "I don't want to be touched anymore." It's in quotes, like it's nothing. Just another sentence. But I read it again, and again, and again, until the words start blurring. I don't want to be touched anymore. I left the records office with the folder in my bag and a silence I couldn't shake. On the drive home, I didn't turn on the radio, didn't call Marianne, didn't even cry. Just drove through flat Ohio roads and watched the sky dim. It looked like rain but never delivered, like grief that doesn't quite fall. That night, I dreamed of a hallway, endless, doors on both sides, all locked. Danny stood at the far end holding something small, a model airplane maybe, and every time I stepped closer, he moved farther away. I called out. He didn't turn. He just walked. I woke up gasping. My hands clutched the sheet. My heart raced like it did when I was 16 and heard the lock click on the basement door. I called the number listed on the transfer form, an old Cleveland facility, closed now. But someone answered. A woman named Belinda, retired nurse. She'd stayed on for phone duties. When I said Danny's name, she paused. Then quietly, Your family? Yes. Another pause. I remember him. That stopped me. Right there in my kitchen, I gripped the counter and nearly dropped the phone. She continued. He used to draw pictures of a house. Same one. Over and over. Sometimes there were people in it. Sometimes just a door. What kind of door? Locked. Always locked. She gave me a name. Not Danny. Not David. He changed it, I think, she said. But I remember his eyes. And she gave me a town. 3 hours away. A long drive. But closer than he'd been to me in 50 years. Tomorrow I'll go. I don't know what I'll find. I don't know if he'll speak. I don't even know if he'll recognize me. But I'll go. Because maybe I didn't open that door all those years ago. But this time I'll knock. He didn't recognize me. Not at first. The man who opened the door, if you could call it that, a slow shuffle, a cautious angle, looked more like a faded photograph than a person. Gray hair, hollow cheeks, eyes like locked windows, but not empty, not dead, just guarded. Like someone who's learned the hard way that safety comes from silence. Hi, I said. My voice was too cheerful, too soft, like a stranger knocking on the wrong house. He didn't speak, just stared, then looked down at the name tag I wore on a lanyard, Visitor's Protocol. Helen, he said flatly. He didn't ask why I was there, didn't invite me in, didn't smile, just repeated, Helen. Not kindly, not cruelly, just like the word had weight, like it still hurt his mouth. We sat outside on a bench. The staff offered tea. I declined. So did he. Silence stretched long and thin, and then, I wrote you, he said. My throat closed. He didn't look at me when he said it, just stared at a tree across the parking lot. I wrote you. In 74, maybe 75. You never answered. I swallowed. I never got it. I know, he said. That's when the shaking started. My hands, again. My body betrays me when emotion rises. Always has. I reached into my bag and pulled out the folded note I found, the one with just a line of blue ink. Did you see what he did to me? Or were you looking away? I held it out to him. His hand didn't move. He looked down, eyes narrowing. That was the second one, he said. Second. He stood, slowly. His knees cracked like old wood. Wait here, he muttered. I did. 15 minutes, maybe 20. Then he came back holding a thin, crumpled envelope, yellowed, warped by time. He handed it to me. It had my name on it, my old address, no stamp. I opened it with hands that barely felt real. Inside, 2 pages, cursive, sharp, angry. You were there. You saw me flinch. You heard me cry. You knew he went into my room, and you said nothing. They love him because he's loud, because he lies well, because he smiles with his teeth. I don't know how to scream like that. If you don't write back, I'll know what side you're on. I read it twice, 3 times. Tears didn't come. Not yet. I didn't choose a side, I whispered. I was afraid. I was young. You were older than me, he said. You weren't the one bleeding. That did it. Not a slap, not a scream, just that sentence. I folded the letter and placed it back in his hand. I have no excuse. For once, my voice didn't shake. I'm not here to fix anything. I know I can't. I just needed you to know that I remember. I do, and I'm sorry. For everything. For all of it. He didn't respond. Not right away. We sat there for a while, watching clouds. A wind picked up. It carried that kind of autumn bite. Soft but insistent. Like change. Finally, he said, You didn't save me. No. But you didn't destroy me either. He stood, nodded toward the building. I don't do visitors, he said. But you can come back, if you want. Then he walked away. Not fast, but without looking back. I held the letter all the way home. My hands smelled like dust and paper and something else. like time. That night, I read it again, and when I finally slept, I dreamed not of locked doors or screaming silence, but of a child's hand in mine, holding tight. In the dream, he held my hand. He was small again, 8, maybe 9. Same striped shirt, same crooked smile. We stood in the hallway of our old house, and he tugged at my sleeve like he used to when he was scared. "Come on," he said, "it's still there." Then he led me down the narrow stairs, not the front ones, the basement ones, dark, cold, familiar. I hadn't been in that house in decades, but in the dream, every step knew me. The creak of the second stair, the damp smell of the walls, the click of the light chain that never worked right. Danny walked ahead. I followed. We reached the bottom. He pointed to the far end, the storage room. "I stayed here," he whispered, "while you were sleeping." And I remember thinking, but I wasn't asleep. I was just afraid. I woke up with my chest tight and my mouth dry. The clock read 4:17 a.m., and all I could think was, it's still there. That house, that room, that silence, not just in my head, in the world. I checked the county registry that morning. The house had been sold 3 times since Mama died. It was now a rental, a family of 4. I didn't call. I didn't write. I got in my car and drove. 2 hours, no traffic, just the radio low and my pulse high. When I parked across the street, I almost couldn't move. It looked the same, not identical, but close enough to ache. Same porch rail, same sloped roof, same cellar door. I sat there for maybe 10 minutes before I worked up the nerve. Knocked twice. A woman answered. Early 40s, kind face, soft eyes. She had a baby on her hip and a little boy clutching her leg. "Hi," I said. "I'm sorry to bother you. I used to live here, a long time ago. Would it be all right if I looked around just a minute?" She blinked, then smiled. "You're Helen, right?" That stopped me. She opened the door wider. My husband found some old mail in the attic. Said if anyone ever came looking, I should ask if your name was Helen Cordell. My knees nearly buckled. She let me in. The house smelled like cinnamon and diapers, toys on the rug, family photos, laughter behind the walls. It was warm, but beneath it all, the bones were the same. I walked slowly, touching the corners like they could speak, and when I opened the basement door, the light still didn't work. Some things don't change. I took each step down like it might give way. It didn't. The storage room door was still there, but now it had no knob, just a blank, painted panel. "What happened to this door?" I asked. The woman shrugged. "Was like that when we moved in. We just store old boxes in there. Never could figure out how to open it. My husband said maybe it was sealed from the inside." I stared at it. A room, no knob, no key, no way in. A room built to hold silence. "Would you mind if I sat here a while?" I asked. She looked at me a beat longer than felt casual, then nodded. "Take all the time you need." When she left, I sat on the cold concrete floor and leaned my back against the sealed door, and I talked. I told the door everything, what I knew, what I didn't, what I wished I'd done, what I still planned to do. I told the truth and let it echo in a room no one could enter, and when I stood to leave, I pressed my hand flat against the wood. It was warm, just for a second, then cold again. The attic box was smaller than I expected, duct-taped at the edges, dusty like something forgotten or hidden. But it had my name on it, Helen Cordell, written in blue ink, careful, round letters, Mama's handwriting. The new homeowner handed it to me just before I left. Said, "We meant to toss it last spring, but something told me to keep it." I took it home and didn't open it right away. I stared at it from across the room like it might hiss or scream. When I finally did, there weren't many things inside. An envelope, a broken pair of reading glasses, a church bulletin from 1973, and a yellowed newspaper clipping, folded twice and circled in red pen. "Missing boy found after 3 years. now using alias David Nolan. I froze. That name again. The one the nurse had mentioned. The one that came up empty in every search. David Nolan. It was Danny. It had to be. But why would Mama have this? Why keep it buried in a house she never let herself talk about? I unfolded the clipping, read every line twice, 3 times. The article was short, almost cold. A boy found living in a group home under a false name. Authorities believed he had been abandoned. He refused to name family, refused to speak for months. Eventually, he said his name was David, nothing more. I remember the year, 1976. That was the year Mama stopped setting a place for him at dinner. The year she looked older every morning. The year she started sleeping with the hall light on. I used to think it was grief. Now I know better. It was guilt, or maybe fear, or both. The envelope had no return address. Inside, a crumpled page from a journal. 2 Polaroid photos and a small creased piece of paper with 5 words in block letters. If he's safe, leave him. My hands shook. The photos were blurry. One showed a teenage boy in a field looking away from the camera. Dark hair, skinny arms, eyes hidden. The second photo, a room, windowless, a bed, a chair, familiar. It looked like the basement. I sat down on the kitchen floor. No chair felt right for this moment, just me, the box, and decades of silence cracking open like a rotten egg. That phrase, if he's safe, leave him, made my chest burn. Safe? Was that why Mama never looked for him? Was that her compromise? She'd sent him away and someone had made sure he stayed away. But what if it wasn't Mama who wrote the note? What if it was him? I stood, paced. Every cell in my body felt electric, like truth wanted out of my skin. If Danny had really taken a new name, if he'd erased us, if his silence was his protection, then who was I to show up now? But it was too late to stop. You can't dig halfway into a grave and call it respect. You finish. You find the bones. I called the group home listed in the article. Didn't expect it to still be operating, but it was. Different name now. Same location. A woman answered. Polite. Curious. When I asked about David Nolan, she said something that made my stomach fall. He's been here before, comes every few years, just to look around. Is he there now? I asked. No, she said, but he called last week, asked if anyone had come asking about him. I went still. She lowered her voice. He said, if she comes, tell her I'm not mad, but I don't want to be found. I didn't sleep that night, not because of guilt, not anymore, because of that one sentence, I'm not mad. It wasn't forgiveness, it wasn't love, but it wasn't hate either. That's when I knew. He hadn't erased me. He remembered. He just needed me to prove I wasn't the same. I don't understand, Marianne said. Her arms were crossed. Her voice wasn't angry exactly, more like stiff, brittle. Why now, Mom? After all this time? I opened my mouth, closed it. Because he's still alive. Because I got a second chance. Because silence is heavy and I'm done carrying it. Because I was afraid. And I'm still afraid. But I'm also tired of being that version of myself. None of it came out right. I have to, I finally said. That's not an answer. She sat down across from me, hands folded, jaw tight. You told me he ran away, she said. When I was little. You said he wanted to live somewhere quiet. You made it sound like a choice. It wasn't, I said softly. I know that now. Her eyes were sharp. And I want to know why you lied to me. Why you waited until now to go looking. Her questions weren't unfair. They were earned. Still, they stung. Because no matter how old she got, part of me still wanted to protect her. From the dark, from the cracks, from me. You were a child, I said, and I wasn't ready to be honest. I wasn't even honest with myself. She didn't say anything, didn't blink. I went to the drawer, pulled out the folded newspaper clipping, then the note. If he's safe, leave him. I placed both on the table between us. This is why, I said, because I never was, and now I am. Marianne stared at the paper for a long time, then leaned back and crossed her arms again. You think you're going to fix something? She asked. No. Make peace? Maybe. You think he'll want that? I met her eyes. I don't know what he wants, but I know what I owe. The room was still. Even the clock seemed to tick quieter. Finally, she stood. Okay, she said, but just don't expect it to turn out neat. I don't. She paused at the door. Will you tell Jacob? I hesitated. Not yet. Why not? Because he still believes his grandmother was the good guy. She didn't argue. She just nodded and left. I sat there alone, surrounded by paper and ghosts. And for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel brave. I felt 15 again, frozen in a hallway, hearing a basement door click shut. I thought about the house again, the sealed room, the wood that held my silence for half a century. Then I thought about Danny, sitting somewhere under some other name, carrying memories like old coins, kept but never spent. He remembered me. He said he wasn't mad. That's something. Maybe not enough, but something. That night, I wrote him a letter. Dear Danny, I won't ask for forgiveness. That belongs to you. But I want you to know, I remember everything. Not all at once, not clearly, but I remember. You didn't make it up. You didn't deserve it. And I didn't do enough. I'm still trying to. Love, Helen, I didn't mail it. Not yet. Some things still needed to happen face to face. He didn't speak when I arrived, just pointed to the chair beside him, so I sat. The common room was quiet. A clock ticked steadily somewhere near the window. The TV was on but muted. A nurse passed through once and smiled at us like this was just another day. But it wasn't. Danny sat slightly hunched, hands folded in his lap, eyes straight ahead. I wanted to fill the silence, to apologize, explain, say something clever or moving or brave. But I didn't. Instead, I mirrored him, hands in lap, eyes forward, waiting. 10 minutes passed, maybe 15. Then he spoke. You came back? Simple words, heavy ones. Yes, I said. Why? That was the question, wasn't it? Why now? Why him? Why open old wounds? I don't know if it helps, I said, but I think I needed to sit with you, in truth, even if we don't talk, even if it hurts. He nodded once. Not agreement, just recognition, like pain, recognizing pain. You told me not to find you, I said, but I did. I know. I wasn't sure you'd let me stay. He didn't answer. We sat again in silence, but it felt different now, not empty, not cold, just alive. Two people sitting with what they never said. After a while, he turned his head slightly. His eyes met mine for the first time that day. You remember the blue ashtray? My breath caught. Yes. Do you remember what I did with it? I nodded slowly. You threw it at the wall the night you ran away. No, he said. Pause. You weren't there for that part. He unfolded his fingers and looked down at his hand. After you left the room, I picked it up again, and I held it, tight, so hard it cut my palm. He showed me the scar. You can't always scream out loud, he said. I wanted to cry, but didn't, because this wasn't the moment for my pain. It was his. I told them you hit me, he said. Who? The counselors, the police, anyone who asked. It was easier, more believable. I blinked. What? You were older. You were angry sometimes. It made sense to them. I never. I know. Silence. Then with a faint, almost broken laugh, he added, I think I just wanted them to ask you something, anything, so you'd have to see me again. My throat tightened. Danny, He held up a hand. I don't blame you, he said. I had to survive it somehow. We all pick what lets us breathe. A tear finally slid down my cheek. Just one. He didn't look away, didn't flinch. He just nodded again, like we were finally telling the same story. "I brought you something," I said. I reached into my bag and pulled out the model airplane, the one from the photo. I'd found it in Mama's attic box, taped together, a wing still missing. He took it, held it, turned it over once, twice, then said, "This is real." It was the most honest sentence I'd heard in years. We didn't hug, didn't hold hands, didn't make promises. But when the nurse came back to take him to dinner, he looked at her and said, "She can stay if she wants." I was ready for forgiveness, or quiet, or maybe just more silence, but I wasn't ready for rage. Not his, not mine, not the room's. The next day, he asked me to come again. Same chair, same muted TV, but this time there was something behind his eyes. Not softness, not calm. Fire. "I need to tell it once," he said. "All of it." I nodded, braced myself, but nothing could have braced me for what came next. "It started before the bicycle," he said. "I just didn't have words yet." He stared ahead, not at me. I thought he was helping me. That's how it always begins, right? "I'm just showing you. I'm just teaching you. I'm just playing." Pause. It's not playing when someone bleeds. I felt my hands clench on my knees, tried to breathe. "You saw, Helen. You saw more than you admitted. You saw me limp. You saw me flinch. You saw me lock the bathroom door when no one else did." He turned to me now, eyes blazing. "And you said nothing." "I was afraid," I said. It sounded weak, pathetic, but it was the truth. "So was I," he shouted. People turned. A nurse glanced over, but he didn't stop. "You were the only one who could have stopped him. You were older. You were smart. You were there." His voice broke. "I begged you with my eyes. You didn't look." I started to cry, and not a cinematic tear down the cheek kind of cry. Ugly, shaking, the kind that comes from a place you thought was sealed forever. "I didn't know how," I whispered. "You knew enough," he said. "You knew when to be quiet. That's what saved you." He stood up suddenly, walked to the small bookshelf by the window, picked up a glass paperweight, turned it in his hands. The staff watched carefully. No one moved. "I smashed the ashtray because I couldn't smash him," he said. "I thought it would end there, but it didn't. It just went quiet, like poison in the wallpaper." He put the paperweight down, returned to his seat, sat, breathing hard, hands shaking. I didn't try to touch him. I knew better. "I'm not telling you this to hurt you," he said. "I'm telling you because it's real, because I carried it alone for 50 years. And I don't want to carry it anymore." I reached into my purse, pulled out the letter I wrote him, the one I hadn't mailed. "I wrote this," I said, "before I knew what you'd say, before I heard the truth, but maybe it's still true now." He took it, didn't open it, just held it. "I'm not asking for anything," I said. "Not forgiveness, not closure, just space. So we're not pretending anymore." He nodded once, then looked out the window. We didn't speak again for a long time. Just sat. 2 survivors. 1 storm. That night, I stood in front of my bathroom mirror and said his name out loud, like a prayer, like a wound. "Danny, Danny, Danny." And then I said Tommy's name, but only once. Then I turned out the light. The social worker's name was Angela. Soft voice, steady hands, kind in a way that didn't feel forced. "He said you could look," she told me, setting the box down on the table. It was plastic, labeled with black marker, Cord 1975 Nolan Danny's number, his file, his forgotten past. I opened it slowly. Old papers, faded photos, medical charts with thick red stamps, withdrawn, unresponsive, observation required, but tucked underneath it all, a manila envelope sealed and yellowing. "To Helen, when she's ready." That handwriting, Mama's. My stomach flipped. I sat down hard. Angela touched my shoulder. "I'll give you some time." I stared at the envelope for a full minute before opening it. Inside, 4 pages, and one photograph I'd never seen before. Danny, maybe 5 years old, on Mama's lap, smiling. She looked tired even then. I unfolded the letter. "Helen, if you're reading this, it means you found your brother, and maybe now you're ready to know what I couldn't say out loud. Yes, I knew. Not everything. Not at first, but enough. I saw the bruises, heard the excuses. I asked questions, quietly so they wouldn't echo. Tommy lied well, always did, just like his father. And I was scared of what it meant to accuse him, scared of what people would say, what the church would think, what the family would lose. So I made a trade. I chose silence and sent your brother away. Not because I didn't love him, but because I didn't know how to fight for him. And maybe I didn't want to see the truth about all of us. You were just a girl, but you saw more than I did. I know that now. I am sorry for what I did and what I didn't. Take care of him if he'll let you. But more than that, see him, not as broken, just as surviving. You're stronger than I was. Always were. Mama, I didn't cry, not right away, because the anger came first, hot and sharp. She knew, all that time, the silence, the shame, the whispered lies. And she knew. She just chose quiet, like I did, like generations before us. But underneath the rage, something else crept in, something quieter, sadder, something like understanding. She was raised in a world where women were polite, where abuse wore suits, where boys didn't cry and girls didn't ask questions, where silence wasn't cowardice. It was survival. She failed him, like I did, but not out of malice, out of fear. I folded the letter back up, pressed it to my chest. Then I opened the second envelope in the box, one I hadn't noticed. Inside, Danny's drawings, dozens, some in pencil, some in crayon, mostly houses, some burning, some whole. And one, just one, showed 3 people, a woman, a boy, and a girl standing between them, arms outstretched. I don't know if it was a memory or a wish. I left the facility that day with both envelopes pressed to my heart. Not forgiveness, not healing, but wait, and maybe a beginning. I didn't mean to turn on the news. It was background noise, the kind you keep on to make silence feel less sharp. I was folding laundry. Danny's letters lay on the counter beside me, still unread, still heavy. Then I heard it. Local town to honor war veteran Thomas Cordell with memorial statue and civic ceremony. I froze. No, it couldn't be. Not him. But the screen confirmed it. Tommy, in uniform. That smug, sharp smile. He looked like a leader, like someone worth remembering. The anchor's voice was cheerful. Cordell, who served 2 tours in Vietnam, was described as a pillar of the community by former church leaders and family friends. Family friends. Church leaders. All the same people who stayed silent, who called him charming, who told Danny to sit still and stop crying. I sank into the couch. My fingers dug into the fabric. I wanted to scream, to throw the remote, to rip the TV out of the wall. But I didn't. I just watched. Ceremony will be held this Sunday, the anchor said, in front of the restored Veterans Park. The statue will stand as a symbol of strength, duty, and sacrifice. Strength, duty, sacrifice. Words that meant something real when they weren't hiding monsters. That night, I sat at the kitchen table with the TV off, the lights low and Danny's photo in my hand, the one from his birthday, holding the model airplane, Tommy behind him, half-shadowed. How many people looked at that photo and saw a family? How many never noticed the grip on Danny's shoulder? I called the town office the next morning. "Can I speak to someone about the Cordell statue?" I asked. A pause, then a polite voice. "Certainly. Are you calling to volunteer for the unveiling event?" "No," I said. I'm calling because the man you're honoring destroyed my brother's life." Silence. They transferred me. Twice. I spoke to a city official, told him what happened, or at least what I knew, what I lived beside, what I ignored. His tone shifted. "That's a serious accusation." "I know," I said. "There are no criminal records under his name." "I know that too," I said. "That's part of the problem." He asked if I had proof. I told him the proof was walking around under another name, still breathing, barely trusting. He said they'd review things, said they'd discuss. I knew that tone. It meant bury it. So I made a choice. I went to the garage, pulled out the old folding chair, a sign from the last protest Marianne dragged me to years ago, blank on one side, and I sat down at the park. 2 days before the statue went up, I sat there with a new sign, "Heroes don't hurt children." People stared, some asked questions, most just kept walking. But one man, old thick glasses, cane in hand, approached. "I knew Tommy," he said. "So did I replied. He nodded slowly. "Never liked how he looked at the little ones. Never said anything, though. Wish I had." I didn't move, didn't flinch, just sat. Because silence built that statue, and maybe, just maybe, noise could crack it. The mayor asked to meet me privately, coffee shop, corner booth, neutral ground. I expected condescension, a pat on the hand, some polite variation of, "Thank you for your concern, but that's not what I got." She was younger than I remembered. Sharp eyes, no jewelry, one chipped fingernail. "Ms. Cordell," she said, sitting across from me. "Thank you for coming." I folded my hands, said nothing. She looked down at her coffee, stirred it even though it was black. Then softly, "You're not the first person to bring his name up like this." I blinked, sat forward. "Excuse me?" She nodded. 3 years ago, a woman came into the office, didn't leave a name, just a folder, said, "Do what you want with it." Walked out. What was in it? Testimonies, a few old letters, scans of hospital records, no police reports, no formal complaints, but she sighed. It painted a very clear picture. I felt like the air had been punched out of me. "You knew," I whispered. "I suspected." "Then why build the statue?" She met my eyes, and for the first time in a long time, I saw someone else carrying the same shame I wore. Because by the time I read it, the votes were in. The grant was approved. He was already being treated as a symbol, not a man, and I didn't know how to undo it. Silence. Then, "I regret it," she said, and I believed her. "You said a woman left the folder," I asked. "What did she look like?" She paused. White, 60s maybe, blue scarf. Didn't look at me when she spoke. That could be anyone. Or, did she say who she was? No, but she called him the golden boy with blood under his fingernails. I froze. That phrase. Danny used it once, in his letter. So, who was she? The mayor continued. I tried to trace the files. No luck. They were copies, no originals, but they matched too much of what you just said to ignore. She pulled something from her purse, a flash drive. This is what I salvaged. I took it without a word. My fingers curled around it like it might burn me. Why give it to me now? I asked. Because I think you're the only one who won't be afraid to use it. We sat in silence for a moment. Then she stood. One more thing, she said. There's a time capsule under the statue base. A what? Standard civic thing. Letters, memorabilia, a statement from the honoree, family photo if they had one. A cold wave rolled through my spine. I want to open it, she said, quietly, before the ceremony. I nodded, heart thudding. Because if Tommy left a message behind, if he got the last word, I was going to read it, and then I was going to answer. Back home, I plugged in the flash drive. Dozens of files, typed statements, old scans. One stood out, an interview transcript labeled T. Cordell, 1981, sealed. And at the top, subject voluntarily admitted for anger management therapy. He confessed, not to everything, not to names, but enough. Enough for the world to know, enough for me to speak. They opened the capsule at night, no press, no speeches, just quiet gloves, bolt cutters, and 3 people who no longer believed in statues. The mayor, a maintenance worker named Luis, and me. The box itself was small, steel, stamped with the city crest and the year, 1995. Luis unscrewed the latches. His flashlight flickered as he opened the lid. We all leaned in. Inside, a folded flag, a church bulletin, a plastic army medal, 1 photo of Tommy in uniform, and a sealed envelope cream-colored. No return name, just 1 word handwritten on the front. For her. I knew it was for me before I touched it. I knew the handwriting, too. It wasn't his. It was Mama's. The mayor stepped back. Luis looked away. Some letters aren't meant for public eyes. I took it with both hands, felt the paper soften under my fingers, opened it. Helen, if you're reading this, it means the statue stands. It means they believed the surface. Maybe you did too, once. Maybe you still do. But if you're here now, alone, after dark, opening things not meant to be opened, then maybe something changed in you. Maybe you're ready to know the rest. It wasn't just Tommy. It never was. The rot ran deeper than 1 name. Your uncle knew. So did the pastor. So did I. And I stayed. I let them silence me. I chose the pews over the screams, the image over the truth. I failed him. I failed you. But I buried this letter here, not as a confession, but as a key. If the world ever dares to ask what really happened, give them this. And if they don't ask, make them. My hands shook, my legs too. I had come looking for Danny, but now I saw it. He wasn't the only one lost. We all were. The mayor spoke first. Do you want to stop the unveiling? No, I said. She blinked. No? I looked up at the statue, still under its tarp, still pretending. I want them to finish it, I said. Let them praise him. Let the cameras roll. Why? So I can speak when they're done. Luis chuckled under his breath. The mayor smiled. I'll get you a mic, she said. That night, I sat in my car with the letter in my lap. The weight of it, the grief, the rot, the permission. It nearly crushed me. But it was also a gift. Because for the first time, I had something heavier than shame. I had proof, and I had voice. I texted Marianne. Tomorrow, noon, Civic Park. Bring Jacob if he asks. He should know. She replied, Are you sure? And I wrote back what I hadn't said in 50 years. Yes, he was unveiled in bronze, 8 feet tall, hat tilted just right, smile polished like a medal. People clapped. Children waved flags. A pastor said a prayer. A man in a crisp blue suit called him a symbol of integrity, of service, of sacrifice. I stood beside the mayor, not clapping, not smiling, just waiting. When they handed me the microphone, the applause was still fading. I stepped forward, felt every eye on me, felt my throat tighten, and then I began. My name is Helen Cordell. I grew up in this town, right over on Fairmont Avenue, just 3 blocks from here. Some heads nodded. I was proud of this town. I believed what we were taught, that the loudest men were the bravest, that shiny shoes meant clean hearts, and that family always protected its own. I paused, and that's what makes this so hard to say. The crowd quieted. You could hear wind in the trees. You could feel the shift before it reached their minds. Tommy Cordell, the man in that statue, hurt my brother. Gasps. A child asked, Mommy, what does she mean? The mother didn't answer. He hurt him for years, in our own home, under our own roof, and no one stopped him. Not my mother, not our church, not me. I turned slightly, met eyes with the mayor. She didn't flinch. He wasn't a hero. He was a shield, one we used to cover up a sickness we didn't want to name. Someone yelled, "Lies!" I nodded. I wish they were. I pulled out the letter, Mama's, held it up. This was buried beneath the statue, a message from a woman who knew what silence costs. She wanted you to hear this, and so do I. I didn't read the letter aloud, not then, but I held it like scripture, and I spoke from memory. There are boys who bleed behind doors, and girls who freeze in hallways, and mothers who choose peace over truth. I've been all three. The silence grew heavier, not angry, not yet, but cracking. I looked toward the crowd and saw Jacob, his face pale, his eyes wide. Marianne stood behind him, one hand on his shoulder, the other over her mouth. She was crying. He was still. "This statue is bronze," I said, "but the truth is not stone. It breathes. It outlives the ones who deny it, and it's breathing now." I stepped back, gave the mic to no one. People didn't applaud. They didn't boo either. They just stood there, like a spell had broken, but no one knew what to do next. That night, someone spray-painted the statue, not with hate, not with profanity, just one word: listen. A week later, the town council voted to remove it. Quietly. No ceremony this time. Danny never came to the unveiling. He watched it online. I know because he called. Said nothing for a long time. Then finally, "You said it better than I ever could." "It wasn't for me," I replied. "I know." He hasn't asked to see me again. But we talk sometimes now. Little things, movies, weather, books, and sometimes big things too. Not all at once, but enough. Last week I mailed him the letter, Mama's. I told him, "You should have it. She owed it to you more than me." He texted one word back, "Read." The past doesn't unmake itself, but sometimes you look it in the face. Sometimes you speak where silence once lived. And sometimes that's how a family begins again. If you're still here and this story spoke to you, consider subscribing to the channel so you won't miss the next one.